Hey, welcome in. I'm Rita, and this is the story I'm telling myself. If you've ever felt like you're standing in your own way, you are not alone. Let's get into it. Hello, it is Tuesday again, and that means that we are back at the Story I'm Telling Myself podcast. And we have a very dear friend of mine, all the way from the UK, joining on the conversation today. Gary Spencer is with us. Hey, Gary.
Hello there. It's great to be here again.
I love it. I love that you're my first guest that has returned from season one guest. But that's also not surprising to me, but it is joyful to have you back in studio again.
Yeah, and season one was so good, and season two is really kind of picking up steam now, isn't it?
It is. It is. I don't know what to say. I love my people. Like my network is filled with amazing people that have so much wisdom to share. And if you caught this on your podcast channel on Thursday and you were trying to log in on Facebook, I am sorry. I don't know why Facebook and StreamYard are fighting, but they are fighting for some reason with one another. I've tried everything to make Facebook work, and it's just not happening. But the people that are returning, they know how this goes. Hey, Meryl, thanks for joining us. So good to have you with us. I know we love Leslie Flowers. She does such a wonderful job helping to get the word out there. Hey, Leslie, speaking of
Good
you,
morning,
delightful
Leslie.
person, you, and a shared friend of Gary and I's, Gail Kraft, in the house with us as well. If you are joining us live, please jump in the comments. Welcome, Gary. Introduce yourselves to everybody else in the comments because this show is for you and we want to make you part of the conversation. But before we get started, we're going to let Gary have a few seconds to introduce himself. Tell everybody about yourself, Gary.
Well, I'm Gary Spencer, and if my voice is a little bit high at the moment, it's because I've had a camera put down my throat this morning at my hospital appointment, which was great fun because I could see everything that was going on inside. And but I'm a retired businessman, recently retired, so I've got a whole life in front of me of exciting things, and I'm wanting to kind of step into those and understand what those are going to be, what they're going to mean for me and the people around me who I love and want to spend time with. So that's me.
And Gail and I have been with you, along with Sharon Summerfield, through a lot of that journey. We've sort of watched you step back a little at a
Yeah,
time to into retirement from that lovely business that you built with your sons that they are now running. And Gary would love to connect with listeners over on LinkedIn. I'll pop up. He's Gary Spencer 492-37021. Which is hard. So come to the show notes and the link will be there. Come over to the podcast platform into the show notes. And then Gary will also be out on LinkedIn. So if you're listening right now on LinkedIn, he'll be out in the comments responding to you. And that'll be an easy way for you to connect there as well. So I cherish the opportunity to be in conversation with Gary because he always gets me thinking more deeply and contemplating things I might not otherwise have had the insight to give my attention to. And so we were in a conversation catching up, and he was talking about this thought he had, which is, was he showing up as the weakness in his life? And with that introduction, Gary, I'm going to ask you to sort of step back into the moment that this contemplation came to you and what it made possible.
yeah. Like many people at the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026, it tends to be a watershed period. We tend to think of the year that we've been through in the past and what's to come as we start to look forward. And each year, my wife and I, we have this thing that we do where we try and pick a word which will sum up the year ahead. Whilst we spend some time looking back, we already know what happened, we experienced it, we were there. But as we look forward, we're not there yet. And to some degree, we're kind of there a little bit. We're into the end of the first quarter of the new year. But back then, the word that came to mind for us was the word open. And interestingly, the first time my wife mentioned that word to me, I thought, am I going to be the weakness here? Having had
Mm.
this transition from being a busy businessman into opportunities to kind of sit and relax and recline and take things easy and etc., as one imagines people doing when they're retired. I suddenly thought, am I going to be the weakness to being open this year to whatever it is that is going to come my way, which is going to benefit me and the people that I love and the people that I want to spend time with? And one of the things that I shared with Rita was, am I going to be a passive participator in this coming year? Am I going to sit back and just respond to the things that are happening to me and around me? Or am I going to be an active initiator? Am I going to, because I've spent a life being an active initiator and doing things and starting businesses and going out there and learning new things and experiencing new things. And am I going to be an active participator, or am I going to be the weak link when others around me are saying, Dad, can you come and do this? Gary, can you come and do this? Oh, do you fancy doing this? Do you fancy doing that? Suddenly got all this time. And I say, oh no, I'm busy. I'm kind of sad. I'm relaxing. I'm retired. I don't want to be doing any of those things. Or am I, am I going to be engaging? And in that, there was a few things that kind of cropped up. Am I prepared to remove whatever's in the way so that I can have this more open view of the possibilities that are in my life? And I've done
Well,
loads of things.
let's pause there a minute and talk about
Yeah,
that. About removing the things in your way. So as you started to think about that, give us some examples of, the internal narration in your head. What words were or visuals were coming to mind for you about the kinds of things that would be in the way?
I'll give you a silly one to start with. I've got this fabulous armchair that I sit in, and it's really comfortable, and I spend far too much time in it. And I'm thinking, I need to get rid of that. I need to get rid of that armchair. I need to be a bit uncomfortable. So, in a sense, if I'm going to be active, I need to be a bit uncomfortable, because if I sit back, my natural weakness is to sit back, relax, just be recumbent and just chill. Um, some people who know me well say, "Look, you're just too relaxed. How do you manage to do all these things when you're as relaxed as you are? You don't seem to
So I
worry
have
about
to,
anything."
you have to pause here and understand for listeners, though. I mean, this, what's so incredible about Gary is he's talking about this, and I want to welcome Felipe and Sharon, and great to have you with us, Sharon and Felipe. Thank you. Good morning to you as well. Is that you're such a successful entrepreneur and businessman. So this idea that you have this other personality that can take over that is so relaxed is something that doesn't readily come to mind for people that know you as the business leader that
Yeah, I
you
mean,
are.
I've loved being in business. I've loved starting businesses. I've loved, especially towards the last decade of my kind of, in inverted commas, working life, whatever that means. Um, starting a business with my two sons, and for the past 10 years, I've loved every part of that. And but I have the other side of me, if you like, the tail to the heads of the coin, which, if I have the choice, I want it to land on tails, and I want to sit in my chair and take things easy and just relax. And in
Well,
a sense,
and
it's one.
we are also of the generation that we were told you work hard your whole life to have this space and time, right? Where you
Yeah,
sit back and you don't, you don't have all of those commitments. Lisa, great to have you with us again. Thanks for coming back. So I understand that, because, you know, that was just sort of how it worked versus where we've come to today, where people are reconciling the need to have more balance and harmony in their lives throughout their adult lives, instead of you work so hard like a gerbil or hamster on the wheel until you get to that magic age, and then you get to step off.
Yeah, and if you remember, I don't know whether I shared this last time I was on here, but you know, that revelation of the comma. You know, I was reading something which started with the word behold, and immediately afterwards was this comma. And behold has got these two parts of, you know, be and hold. And it was, be just means to turn up whole, to turn up exactly how you are, with all your faults and all your strengths and all your weaknesses and all the opportunities that you may have had or that you didn't participate in, or ones you think you're going to have, and possibly even all the threats over your life, whatever that shape they may be, but to turn up whole and just pause for a moment, and pause in that comma. And that revelation of that pause was, I suddenly realized that the relaxed part of my nature, the recumbent part of my nature, was actually a strength. But it's a strength that I needed to be wisely wielded, because we can have people who are strong-willed, dogmatic, and it can move us into areas where we're not willing to change. We're not willing to get out the chair, in effect.
Yes. Well, I want to add Gail's comment in here. I've gotten the impression that Gary's always approached life from a relaxed perspective. I agree, Gail. I mean, he's been a very active businessman, but has this non-panic, non-stressed, really sage wisdom kind of way of approaching life. So when we first got into this conversation, and you said that the word was openness, and then you said weakness, I thought, in what way would openness ever be a weakness for Gary? I mean, there was this interesting dichotomy of thought there, of like, I can't imagine Gary ever being anything but open. I've never experienced you as being anything but open. But in your mind, you were kind of visualizing this in a different way, because it wasn't just about you, it was about your relationship with your spouse. And your shared, it wasn't just your personal vision, it was your shared vision of this.
And this year, of course, I haven't. Previously, I would step into a room and there'd be a door, and I'd walk through that door, and I'd know what the shape of the room was, because it was a business that I'd set up. And in a sense, the business was the room. So I knew where the door was. I knew how to exit. I knew what my exit plan was. This year, I'm stepping into a room, and there are loads of doors. There are loads of choices. There are loads of open opportunities, and opportunities for me to open a door and do something, or remove something that's in the way of a doorway, and kind of make it happen. But kind of, you know, one of the things about unblocking your view is that if you don't do that, if I don't do that in my retirement this year, I'm going to limit my perspective.
Yes. And here, I want to broaden the context real quickly. Let me broaden this very quickly, because look, listener, you may not be Gary's age, and you may not be ready to retire yet, but the world is going through so much change right now. I want you to think about that. Whether you're changing jobs, careers, family life changes, or you live in a part of the world where there's so much imbalance, where there is war happening around you, I want you to really take the context of what Gary is sharing with you and put it into your own personal context. Are you doing that pause that he is talking about? Are you really pausing to recognize in yourself, I'm stepping into a space with a lot of unknowns, and am I feeling fear and anxiety, or am I staying open? And what does it mean to be open? And how you've defined yourself in the past is not how you need to define yourself in the future. But if you don't go on this journey that Gary is on with him, you might miss the opportunity to see things that you would otherwise not see. So please, every time he's talking about retirement, feel free to put in your personal context, because so many of us in the world are in this moment of unknowing.
Yeah, I was listening to a friend of mine the other day, and he was sharing about the struggle between his head and his heart.
Mm.
His head's telling him one thing, his heart's telling him another. And then, of course, he's kind of his Job's comforters around him are saying, "Well, just go with your gut." And he's thinking, "Well, head, my heart, my gut." And I said to him, "Your head and your heart need to sort out their relationship with one another." And I think then we can go with your gut. Then you'll know that your gut feeling is the right thing. And for me, that's the same thing. I can put my head on, I can put what I know my capabilities, or I can go with my heart and think, oh, I want to do this. And sometimes that can be to the detriment of my partner.
Right.
I
Yes.
just want to, my partner suffers with a condition, so her mobility is affected. So I couldn't suddenly decide we're going to walk up mountains, because she'd be forever at the bottom of the mountain waiting for me to come back. So there are ordinary limitations, but I've got to make sure that I open the doors that open up the perspective that we can enjoy this year in particular together, and it has a purpose. And in a sense, the struggle that my friend was talking about with his head and his heart, both his head and his heart need to enjoy the decision that his gut makes.
Yes. Yes.
He
Say
doesn't
that
need
again. Say that again, Gary. That is
his head and
very
his heart
important.
need to enjoy the decision that his gut makes.
Yes. Head and the heart need to enjoy both together the decision
Absolutely.
that the gut makes. Yes. You know how different
Absolutely.
our world could be if people were practicing two things that you're talking about. One is is keeping your perspective relative to other people around you, so that you are inclusive and showing concern for the whole instead of just centering on self. And two is that then, and in that, making those decisions where the head and the heart don't feel in conflict around the
Yeah.
decision of the gut.
Yeah. And part of that is to have the courage of our convictions. Where are our convictions? Are they seated in our head? Are they in our heart? Or are they the kind of central part of who we are? Are they a gut thing? Generally, we know what's the difference between right and wrong. And that's a kind of gut thing. Yes, it has some knowledge, but it kind of passes that kind of test. And
Mm.
that kind of the strength of our character, is my character going to be strengthened by the choices that I make in this environment where I can go through many doors? Is it going to still be, am I still going to be the distinctive me, the individual, my individual and mental moral qualities that I have? I want to carry those through. And so I was
I want to bring.
thinking,
I want to. I want to hook us back up again, just because people speed along sometimes or jump in the middle of
yeah,
this.
yeah,
So you and your wife had this conversation, and you decided openness was the intention that you wanted to have shared purpose around
well, the word was open,
for
just
for
open.
the coming year. And you
Yeah,
immediately had this thought of like, man, I might be the weak link here, like and started contemplating, what does openness mean to me? And one of the thoughts you had is like, okay, there's some stuff that maybe I need to get rid of that could get in the way. And you gave us the example of the chair. What else came up for you as you were contemplating this idea of why might you be the weak link here?
well, if we take the SWOT analysis as a kind of framework, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and if I write those words there, write the word SWOT down and do a kind of acrostic and, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And then the next line, I put me, 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 me. Strengths, me. What can I build on? because you've been around business people and around businesses and into departmental leadership, C-suite leaders and things, and you they might share some weaknesses and some strengths, but generally what you're telling them to do is to build on their strengths. The weaknesses will deal
Yes.
with themselves, but build on your strength. What's your strength? Run with your strengths. So I need to recognize what are my strengths I want to take from my previous experience into this new open experience, this new open opportunity, new open choices. And the
And
other
that's so
one,
important because we don't want to abandon ourselves on our journey. It's
absolutely
so
not.
important that we recognize our strengths. And as you talked about, our character, who we really are, who our intention is to be in the world. And
I
that
want
we
to be
don't feel like
a
we have to
successful.
shapeshift that constantly. That's something that we can carry forward with us.
I want to be as successful in my retirement as I was when I was working. I'm not intending to be lesser of anything. So I need to build on my strengths. The other thing was, of course, weaknesses. You know, what do I need to see diminish? Because in a sense, if I build on my strengths and my weaknesses are going to deal with themselves, should be able to at some point during the year look back and think that weakness is diminishing in me because I'm building on these strengths. And also the opportunities. I'm going to have a plethora of opportunities of what I could improve. I could take up painting again or drawing again and become much more proficient at that. So that, I've got an opportunity in the open choices that I have that are in front of me to actually improve and be maybe even more successful than when I was
Mm,
working than in my retirement. And of course, the threats. What's the negative story I'm telling myself? Am I the weakness? Is that a negative story, or is that an opportunity for me to do the SWOT analysis, the personal SWOT analysis, not the kind of SWOT analysis that loads of people do, which is one that looks to everything outside. What are the strengths out there? What are the weaknesses out there that I need to deal with? Who are the people around me that I need to get rid of? All those kind of things. But do the real SWOT analysis in here. I think for me, character has always been important. It's been important in my business, and having the ability to identify what is reality is something as well that I've always had as an innate ability. So some people think, oh God, I don't know quite what to do here, and they're trying to think what, and I tend to step in and come up with a solution. So I've always been a solution-focused businessman as well. So those things that shape my inner thoughts and beliefs and therefore translate into action for me, they're not going to
yes.
happen. They're not generally going to happen sat in my comfortable chair that I might need to get rid of and get a slightly less comfortable chair, maybe.
Yeah, well, and we all have our version of the comfortable chair. It may not be our version may not be sitting. Our
No,
comfortable chair might be
the familiar.
wanting to live in a certain area of the world and not being open to pursuing opportunities beyond that, or it might be um a story that we tell ourselves, uh, see ourselves in that way, but not recognizing how that story limits us, which is why people come to the Story I'm Telling Myself podcast, because we help to uncover those things. So we all have our version of the comfort, where we've got to recognize that, this is that that the growth happens outside of the comfort.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely. And this whole notion about being able to unblock the view I might have, so I've got a much more open view, is I think is going to be really vital for me. And I think it's also vital for so many people because, you know, what's that famous saying? I can't see the wood for the trees. You know,
Yes.
and we sometimes make the deadly mistake of felling the trees where we just need to walk through them and come out the other side. Because often our journey in business, our journey in life, our journey in relationships is about knowing the reality is that this is only for a season, and we just keep walking one step in front of the other, and we get through the trees, and suddenly we come out into the open.
I think for anybody in a time, in a season of transition, that is a really important thing to understand, because oftentimes what the story that we tell ourselves is that we have to know where we're going. We have to have some vision, some clarity in order to move forward. And we've been taught that. But the truth is that in transition, there are blind spots. There are times when you have to move forward without that clarity of vision. And that's where having intention and knowing your character and having those guideposts to take you along, that let those things be your beacon of light through the forest until you emerge and you can see the bigger picture and begin to understand. But this idea that in any transition you have to know what you're going to, I feel like that is a false pretense.
Yeah, I mean, it was fairly funny because my wife the other day, I walked into the garage where we're living at the moment, and for some reason we've moved about 4 times over the past 12 months, but for some reason I brought this same tin with me that's got odd screws and nuts and bolts and things in, and I've kept them. You know, we bought a piece of furniture and we put it all together, and for some reason we always end up with 2 or 3 screws or nuts and think, where are they supposed to fit? I should have read the instructions. Often we don't bother. We just put the thing together. But we end up with loads and loads of nuts and bolts and things. And my wife goes, well, you've got the day free today. You can empty that box. And I open the lid and I start fiddling around with these screws and nuts and bolts. And I'm thinking, do I want to get rid of this? Do I want to get rid of that? And I put the lid back on and put it back on the shelf. And I walk out of the garage thinking, do you know what? I should really just pick up the box and throw it in the bin. It just needs clearing out. I haven't done it yet. I didn't go back in and throw it in the bin. So all of us, I think, have this clutter that we bring with us from our journey.
Yes. And the underlying story for me with my version of the screws is, as soon as I throw this out, within 6 months, I will have an occasion that I will need something in this, and I'll be like, why did I throw that away?
Listen, I'm part of a generation where if I needed to buy a screw, I used to have to drive and walk or go to somewhere. Now, if I need a screw, I just get on my iPhone and press a few buttons and some guy turns up in a van with the screw. I mean, I don't even have to think about it anymore. Access to stuff is so easy now compared to what it was before. I think some of it arcs back to how we used to live, where we hang on to a bit of yesterday and we need to jettison it to be able to move forward. Otherwise, it just becomes an incumbence. You know, why on earth have I brought this same box of screws from 3 houses? I have no idea. Why is it even at the house that I'm living in?
It is ingrained it's ingrained in me. And the other side of that story is, I can easily replace that. What you're saying, I can easily replace that in 6 months. Should I need it, I could easily replace it. Why am I, but that is the thing in my head. And I sometimes wonder if it just is not in the DNA of men to have the container, because every man that I know has the container of screws and other things.
My father, one of my father's friends, said to me once, you'll know when you've moved into the next generation when you keep a stick for stirring paint. Because Go and ask your son if he's got a stick for stirring paint, and the answer will be no. The day that he saves a stick that should go in the bin for stirring some paint that he's yet to buy is the day that he's moved to the next generation.
I love that. That.
So,
There's such wisdom. There's such wisdom in that, and it's
I
so
want to get rid of
true.
all that. I don't want to save another stick. So I'm determined to get rid of the screws and the nuts and the bolts and the. I've got to
So
be
we
open.
have about 5 minutes left in our time together, Gary, and I really want to give a bit of a roadmap or some guidance to our listeners, because again, what's so important about the timing of this conversation, and I'm telling you, the universe, she just takes care of me over and over and over again. But we are in some very dark and difficult times at every level of our lives, it seems like right now for so many people. And so now is that opportunity for people to pause and to set some intention. And I'll share very quickly. After you and I had our initial conversation about this, and I thought, you know what, I have not chosen my word for the year, which is something that I often do. And last year, the word for the year was change, because of all the change that I already knew that was coming. I was just like, okay, I can either come into this season kind of resisting the change, or I can come into this season embracing the change, just saying, okay, bring it on. This is the season of change. Let's just do it. Like we're just going to be change agile, which is what I chose to do. And it made for a very good 25. But for 26, I sat and I thought a lot about what should be my word. And I chose the word initiate. Initiate. That is my intention for 26. I will initiate. And I ended up finding a partner, pitching an opportunity to bring a program to life, an 8-week leadership program that I had been thinking about and trying to find a path to all of the end of last year. And I just had the very first session of the pilot program yesterday with my new partner. And I'm just so excited about that, but it comes from that place of intention. So no matter where you are, there's an opportunity to set intention and let it be that beacon of light as you travel through the forest. What guidance would you share from your experience so far and what you see ahead for those who need to feel a little less lost right now?
I think one of the profound things I think I've learned is that no matter how dark things get, no matter how dark the place you feel that you are in your life, even in your community, in the world that we live in, just the tiniest light is sufficient. I remember going down into a salt mine in Romania, and in this salt mine, you could fit the entirety of St. Paul's Cathedral inside this salt mine, underground. We were a mile underground, and this Romanian guy struck this match, this tiny little stick of wood with a bit of red on the end of it. He struck this match, and it lit this whole cavern.
Wow.
The darkness does not have the power that you think it has, either over you as an individual, over you as your community, your family, the world that we live in, the darkness that we have around us, wars and famine and goodness, all the negative things you can think of. It doesn't have the power to diminish the very light that's within you as an individual and within me as an individual. And that can be demonstrated by what we say and what we do. And, you've only got to have someone just simply put their hand on your shoulder and you grow. The light grows within you, no matter how dark it is, no matter how desperate you feel. So I think, if I'm going to be leaving a thought with someone out of all the things we've spoken about head and heart and gut and SWOT analyses and all the rest of it, it would be just realize how powerful your light is.
You are
Just
not the weakest. You are not the
switch
weakness
it
in
on.
your life because your
Absolutely.
light is
I am not
incredibly
the
powerful.
weakness. I am not the weakness. I've only got to step from behind the tree and I'll be able to see everything that I need to see. I don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff, you know. So I think sometimes it is about changing our perspective on things. But I think that we have, as human beings, we have an innate, powerful light within us that has the ability to dispel the darkness entirely that's around
Yes.
us. Which is
And
why
and
when
I
we
would
look through
say
history,
if you're if
individuals make history. Individuals make history.
yes, and look, you may be having a weak moment in your life. And that's okay. We all have those weak moments. And I think Gary's idea of doing your own internal SWOT analysis, pausing and recognizing your strengths, appreciating what power you have within you that you can carry with you forward, um, is is one of the simplest and easiest things for you to do to counterbalance that story inside of your head about because let's look, our inner critic beats us up in our moments of weakness. Our inner critic is
Yeah,
kicking us while we're down. That's just how it's going to go. So counting your blessings, recognizing your strengths, these are things that that you hear people talk about all the time. Doing a gratitude journal, all of these things are important practices because that is inviting your light to shine into the world again. It's you striking the match of self.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's
Gary,
been
any final
great.
thoughts you
It's
want to
been
share with our listeners?
uh, well, you know, the one thing that I can say is that if you haven't got in touch with Rita already, then get in touch with Rita. You know, just kind of, I'm sure Rita's got lots of places that you can get in touch with her, but like jump on LinkedIn, touch base with her, share something of your own story with her. And I think the Story I'm Telling Myself podcast, the first season and second season, have just been fantastic. Go back and listen to. There are so many fabulous guests that have brought so much
Yes.
wisdom and insight and yeah, just stories to celebrate life. They've just been fantastic. It's been a constant, like metronomic brilliance.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you, Gary. I received those words with such gratitude and love in my heart. Thank you. I am blessed. I am blessed to know so many amazing, beautiful people like Sharon Summerfield, who's also was a guest in season one, Gail, who was a guest in season one, Nicole, who's with us today. Hey, Nicole, who's going to be a guest coming up later in this season. But the truth is, we all have these stories that live inside of ourselves. And we get to choose whether we let the story own us or whether we own the story. And so, Gary, thank you for owning this story today with our listeners
Thank you.
and providing your own little shine of light that I know is going to help some people during some very dark times right now.
Bless you. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute joy to be here.
Next week, special announcement. We are not going to be live on Tuesday at 11:30. We will be live on Wednesday, the 18th of March with Dr. Fred Luskin. I broke my own cardinal rule and I moved the date and time to fit his schedule. He is the founder of the Stanford Forgiveness Project. And this is like one of my holiest weeks of the year, which is Happiness Day. Is coming up on March the 20th. So, in celebration of World Happiness Day, Dr. Fred Luskin, who is one of my favorite speakers from the World Happiness Summit, is coming to this podcast to speak to you and to me about forgiveness and why forgiveness is the ultimate gateway to your happiness. You're not going to want to miss it. It's a special episode. We are partnering with the Forgiveness Project out of the UK, and we're going to give you access to all of their wonderful resources. So make sure that you are back with us next week, but it will be Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. And we will see you then. Gary, you are a treasure in my life. So happy to call you a friend. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. If you love this episode, leave us those 5 stars and be sure to share this with a friend.